Excellent. Well, welcome. It is wonderful to see so many people at our, come on in, grab a sandwich. At our first CHS O'Brien seminar of the academic year. Before I introduce our panelists and tell you a little bit more about what we're going to get up to today, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement to start us off in a good way. I'm already like, forget to breathe when I talk, I apologize. The University of Calgary is located in the heart of Southern Alberta, and we both acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Kainai, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nation, and the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. And as we enjoy this really long fall, I'm reminded daily of how much I love living on this land. So this seminar is a joint effort between CHS and O'Brien, and this is one of the ways that we live and breathe what I consider the deepest and most valuable partnership to the department. And so it's always a pleasure to work with the team at O'Brien and thank them for leaning in and feeling like we're a great partner too. We have these monthly, so if they're not in your calendar, please reach out to Brenda at the back and get them in your calendar because we are excited to see all of you each month as we come together to just have some fun as a community. So today we're talking about AI, and as we were putting together, come on in, there's some chairs up here if you're comfortable, or today we're talking about AI. We've had this seminar, this is our third time actually of this topic, and you guys keep coming back to ask great questions and learn more, so it says to me you're very interested in it. And today we tried a little bit of a different tack, and so I'll just share with you. Paul asked me today, are you a slow adopter? And I said, I'm actually a no adopter. Like, I've never used AI. I hope never to use AI again, but I know that this wonderful panel will give some really wonderful insights and ideas about it. I know, did you use your phone to speak that you used AI? Yeah, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to introduce the four experts that we have here. And I'm going to ask them a question to start us off, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, in-person audience and online audience, to take the conversation wherever you'd like. So I'll start with our guest of honor, who is next to Paul, in between Jessalyn and Paul, Dr. Soroush Sabbaghan, who is an assistant professor at the Ronksley School of Education here at the university. And he's serving as the inaugural generative AI educational leader in residence at the Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning. So really thinking broadly at the institutional level about how to integrate AI, tools, practices. He shared with me a little bit before presentation some of the work he's doing, which sounded very, very cool. So thank you for coming across 16th Ave to join us today. We also at the end have Dr. Jessalyn Holodinsky, who is an assistant professor here in the school and cross-appointed to Community Health Sciences with her primary appointment in emergency medicine. She is the director of AI, data education, and ethics in the Office of Faculty Development. So thinking a lot about this profile, the file of AI and how to use it here, how to teach us, how to guide us here in the school. We also have Dr. Paul Ronksley, who is a professor here in the Department of Community Health Sciences. And despite his program sounding like it probably should have a lot of AI in it, where his research focus is about understanding chronic disease patients and how they drive healthcare utilization and spending, he is our slow adopter on the panel. And when I was thinking about who could I ask for this, again, I'm a no adopter, I was like, who has about the same amount of gray hair as me? So there we go. And then last, but of course not least, we have Inara Lalani, who is an MSc student here in the department program. And she's going to bring in some of the perspective of a student thinking about using AI, perhaps being a little bit nervous about it, and integrating it into her daily studies. So thank you everybody for finding the time to join us today. I'm just going to start us off just by asking you, tell us a little bit about how you're using AI and the things that you're thinking about. And maybe we'll start off with you, Soroush, and then go wild card from there.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I use AI a lot. almost every day, probably most of my day. I code professionally, and I create commercial AI products. So that's a different focus that I have. From the research perspective, I focus on a human-centric approach to integrating AI in the education system. What human AI collaboration looks like. What are the boundaries of that work? Who has agency, responsibility? How can we attribute our work when we're using AI? That kind of, that kind of space. I want to maybe make a couple of clarifications on where I stand with this technology. I think, first off, the technology was revealed to the world through chatbots, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and so on and so forth. And I think that these chatbots, they're excellent for entertainment, but they are not academic tools at all. Maybe in some small corners of academia, you could use them, but they're not. They're just for entertainment. The real power of this technology is when you make the tool or the machine do one specific task and do it really, really well. And I think that if you have that perspective, that outlook on how can I get the machine to do this heavy load for me, and instead of me taking a lot of time, effort, energy in doing it, I evaluate the outcome. I look at it and I edit it, or I tell it to change the product into my image, whatever I think is right. That's probably a better way of using this technology. I also want to highlight when this technology came out. It came out through this paper called "Attention is All We Need." And at the end of the paper, the people who actually developed transformer technology that led to generative AI, they said, we want to create a technology that enhances human capacity. This is about enhancing human capacity. And I always, when I use this technology, ask the question, am I enhancing my capacity, or am I offloading onto this machine? Am I giving it too much agency? Is it taking over from me? How do I stay in charge? How do I maintain my agency over the machine? And I do this with every single interaction that I have. And that's how I use AI every day.
Jessalyn, you want to go next? First of all, I say it's like very intimidating to sit next to Soroush and talk about AI. He's probably one of the smartest people I know. I also use AI every day, all day, every day, in almost everything that I do. Because we are busy. If you're a faculty member, if you're a student, like you are busy. You've got lots going on, and how can we make your life a little bit easier? So I try to think about AI as how can I make my life a little bit easier. I fully agree with the points of that you need to maintain agency over your work. You have to still be the person who is responsible and evaluating. But how can we make our lives a little bit easier? So I'll give you like a very specific example of something that I did earlier this week using Gen AI. And if anybody's crossed the point into pediatrics that saw me in Grand Rounds earlier this week, you're going to get an insight of how that presentation was made. So I give the intro to AI presentation at department grand rounds all over campus these days. And I do it like once a month, sometimes more than once a month. I love doing it, but it's starting to feel repetitive. Like I could probably give this presentation in my sleep now. And we've got lots of cross-appointed faculty, and I'm like, geez, somebody's probably heard this 4 times. So I'm a Claude user. I did my presentation on the Claude and said, I think I'm giving this presentation for like the 12th time this year. How can I keep the knowledge base that's important to impart to people, but make it a little bit more exciting, present it in a different way, shake it up a little bit. Like, how can I shake up this presentation? And it gave me like 5 different ways that I could shake up this presentation. I thought, oh, okay, I really like that way. And it's like you need to flip the script on here. You're giving all the ethical considerations at the end. Let's start with them up front and then work it through this way. And so that was a way that I could lighten my load this week. If I knew I wanted to revamp that presentation, did I have time to, or did I even have the mental capacity to think about how I should? Not really, but I could use that brainstorm idea to say, flip the script, yeah, okay, I can reject that presentation. So that's like a very specific example of something I did this week, but my answer is like all day, every day. I talk to Claude as if it is a person. Sometimes like my husband makes fun of me a lot for doing that.
And Inara, let's hear from you.
Sure. So hello. I, as Fiona mentioned, I'm a student here in this Department of Community Health Sciences. I have previously done some research, a little bit of dipping toes in the machine learning space, working on specific tools, but nowadays my work is a bit removed from that. So nowadays, when I use Gen AI, I try to be really specific about my use cases, as was mentioned by our other panelists. So my kind of checks are, am I developing my critical thinking, first of all, as a student in the classroom, if I were to ask a friend or use Google for this, would it be considered unethical? So like just as a quick rule of thumb. And then like Jessalyn said, enhancing capacity and not offloading your critical thinking work. So a specific use case for me recently was I needed to memorize the characteristics of different amino acids. So I asked ChatGPT to help me come up with some mnemonics and some rhymes so that I could remember them. So that's an example where I'm maintaining my agency. I'm not offloading my critical thinking work, and I remain in a position to still work with the output if there are mistakes and to be able to discern the mistakes that I make.
And then Paul,
All right,
over to you.
I'm the slow adopter, I guess, but I feel like I'm AI curious in a sense. And so when I say that, like, I've given it a shot. Like I open ChatGPT, I try different things. I teach 2 courses here. I teach the systematic reviews class and the advanced EPI class. I thought, well, let me try it for lesson development, and had some great success in that. And then for the systematic reviews class, I say, find me a systematic review on this topic. Spits one out and it's fake. And I say, can you give me an example of a case series study on a rare disease? I find one, it doesn't exist. You know, like they'll give me 10 different examples and the first 5 are fake studies. And I think to myself, is this helping me in any way? Like, is this helping my efficiency? Or is it just leading me down these rabbit holes where I've just got to do more work when I could have gone to a source like Medline, PubMed, and found stuff pretty quick on the same topic. So I'm on the fence in terms of how I'd use it. I think there's certain opportunities where, like Jessalyn, there's a great, like that's an awesome opportunity. Like take a talk, how can I make it more interesting? And I think the second part is that I just haven't thought through like what I can and can't use it for. And I think there's probably a lot of people here that are in the same boat. There's you'll maybe think of it as just an opportunity to use it for one different way, when I've just heard there's probably hundreds of different ways that we can use it. So and I know like Tyler has it on the home screen of his computer on his phone, uses it every day. Jessalyn uses it every day. Mine's on the last page of like I just like kind of bring it up every once in a while. So maybe I've gotten a little bit further, so just trying to use it more, but that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Questions? Samson, please.
Really great introductions from everyone. I'm curious because we all start in this grounded, a realm of values as academics, valuing sort of integrity of creativity and thoughts. What are your thoughts of introduction of AI to by younger people where we don't have a sort of legacy of values of that line, that gray line that we might not want to cross. So what are your thoughts about younger people where that's not established, but they're using these devices or these, tools constantly?
You want to put this way?
Sure. I mean, like, that's $1 million question, Samson. I don't know that I have an answer to that, but I'll just tell you some of my thoughts around that space. I think that we're in this place where we might have to rethink what our role as an educator is. We used to be in a place where it's like, we were the source of truth and the source of knowledge, and we were imparting that to other people. And now, do we need to rethink, like, we don't need to be the source of truth or knowledge maybe anymore, because there's a lot of that out there around us. Are we the source of skill building? So do we need to worry more about building the critical thinking skills, or building the independent thought skills, or building the creativity skills so that people can better use the knowledge that's around them? I mean, maybe that's a tough, and like, even as like an educator myself, as I say that out loud, I'm like, that's a tough thing to say, and that's a tough thing to think about in the classroom. But I wonder if that's a place that we can make an intentional shift to deal with the piece exactly that you're talking about. And I worry that if we don't start to think hard about that now, we're gonna get in a real bad place real quick. So the like first year university students that are entering the classroom right now, that's the first cohort of students that had Gen AI throughout their entire high school experience. So this is a group of students that's coming to us with a way different bar, way different experiences, way different AI literacy than any students we've ever had before. And that's only going to increase as we move forward, especially as we think about people that have had maybe Gen AI throughout their entire junior high experience, their entire elementary school experience. So I think we're at a critical point where we need to really think hard about that as an educator. So now it's not like an answer, but that's what keeps me up at night, to be perfectly honest.
I add to that too, so yeah, as I think about being an educator and standing up in front of a bunch of students, delivering material, I think, are they getting it? Like, do I have any sense of if this is actually sticking or not? Or are students just really good at prompting their computer to get an answer for something that I'm putting out there? And it makes me think, well, am I doing my evaluation right? Like, should I be changing how I evaluate students to oral presentations, written exams that don't require computers, like just going back to some of the old school ways that we actually evaluate students? Or is that, are most people like groaning because I'm saying that, but like, I struggle with that. Like, is it just gonna be like, does it come down to how well I can prompt Claude or ChatGPT to do my work for me? And is that the skill that we have to develop moving forward, or is there some part that's still critical in that, our critical thinking skills that we as educators have to still instill in students?
Okay, I'll go, and I'll give three buckets, three responses. I actually do a lot of workshop with middle school students, helping them understand what this technology is and how it is. One of the myths around it as a young person who've not really developed the capacity to even think critically is to understand that AI is biased, for one, and number two, it makes a lot of mistakes. So you shouldn't rely on it. It's really easy to do this. There are two types of AI. There's the AI proper, which classifies, and there's generative AI that prepares. With AI proper, it's very, very easy to make your own AI right now. You could do it in 3 minutes, maybe even less. Google Teachable Machines is a website that you can go to, and you could train an AI to distinguish between pictures, images. You can do a simple dog and cat examples. And here's what I would recommend for younger students. Get a series of pictures of dogs, but make them all laps. And get a series of pictures of cats that are diverse. Train the AI to distinguish between dogs and cats. You don't have to do many, maybe 10 pictures. Then give the AI a picture of a puck. It will blow up. It just can't compute. And you ask questions about, well, why can't it? What went wrong? And everyone will point out that your dogs are all laps. You point out that that's right. And it's a moment where you have a conversation about the importance of representation in data. The models are biased. They make mistakes. There is no data set in the world that is not biased. And all these generative AI tools have been trained on these models. So it clarifies, and I see that. I see a gasp on, oh my God, I can't trust this thing. That's a very important and powerful moment to help them realize that you need to stay in charge you're accountable, you're responsible. So that's one way I would look at this. The other way I would look at this is it's probably a bad idea to rely on these tools for information. Like I said, they are biased. They have a model, their large language model based on a training data set. But they are very, very good at reading material and providing you with responses on that material. So instead of asking it to, for example, find a case, say, go to this website that I already know is good, search it and show me cases. And it might make mistakes for you. But the chances of making errors and mistake will dramatically decrease.
That helps me a lot.
Oh, we're gonna sit down with science, right?
The last bucket for a more younger audience is to have a conversation, and probably high school students would be a good, have a conversation about, and this is a much larger topic, but it's prevalent in our society, the value of education, or the value of a higher education degree. It's people are talking about, is there any value? Why should I come to university, I'm going to go into. And high school is probably a good time to start talking about that, and I'll connect it to the point that you made. The big secret I'm going to reveal is I had really bad grades during my bachelor's and master's, really bad. Like academic probation was like this. And when I reflect on at that time, I worked a lot, but I really didn't care about the product, honestly. For me, it was always about what are the virtues that I'm going to gain through the intellectual labor that I have to provide in order to complete this task. It was about virtues. Virtues like, well, I get to learn network thinking. I get to learn backtracking. I get to fail and redo. I learn humility. I learn success. And for 4 years, you are given a couple of tasks or many tasks where you're given the opportunity to learn those virtues, which you will then apply to a larger scale. That's the value of your 4-day, 4-year, or 2-year degree. And if you offload, sit in class, you offload that onto a machine, why would anyone hire you? They will hire the machine because the machine can do what you do. What the machine can't do is to think critically. The machine doesn't understand failure. The machine doesn't understand backtracking. The machine doesn't really understand network thinking. There's a lot the machine does not understand. And if you offload your thinking onto the machine and don't develop those virtues, then you're in trouble. Your choice. I'll stop.
Thank you. Inara, did you want to weigh in?
I guess as the resident young person of the panel. Just kidding. No, just echoing, what everyone else has said. I think, the process of actually dipping your toes in, learning how to, code out like a really simple, classifier, is a really, really valuable experience. Learning how a model actually is made, having to collect data and see exactly where your model is overfitting is a really, really valuable experience that I think helps you understand exactly what this approximation machine you're working with is. And Soroush, I totally agree. The labor and the difficulty of doing these things you're not familiar with, and taking the time to really intimately understand them. There's so much value in that. During my undergrad, the courses I did the worst in were my computer science one. I was a health and society student. Why was I in computer science classes? Because I liked the difficulty of it, honestly. I think even though I didn't always do as great in those courses, again, the process of learning about databases, learning about algorithms, and like those getting down to basics, I think really made the difference. And it's what has helped me today, I think, use AI in a way that does not offload my critical thinking.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering if the panel had some like tips and strategies then to best use AI, kind of jumping off that comment, how to best use AI in which it doesn't take over that critical thinking. What prompts do you use to make it still make you work? What are your like preferred prompts in general for this kind of work? One time I was playing around with it. I put a paper in it. Like I said, it's really good at reading things. And I thought I used the right prompt, but then it gave me this summary that didn't make any sense. I looked in the paper and it just like made something up. So I asked if it even read my paper, and it's like, nah, I didn't. I'm like, excuse me, my prompts and please read this, and sometimes I'm so confused. So like, what did I do wrong there, for example? And then how do I make sure that I'm not forgetting to think myself?
I'll let somebody else start.
Well, for someone that doesn't prompt, like, doesn't know how to talk about it, I feel like I'm the wrong person to answer this question, so, yeah. I'll pass it on to either one of you guys.
Sure, maybe I'll give you
Probably, yeah.
like a very specific example of something that I worked with a student on earlier in the week. So I was working with a student that was trying to improve their academic writing, and the way that they had initially did that, which got them in a little bit of hot water, was that they had thrown something into AI and then let AI just rewrite it for them. And we could see why there might be some problems with that. So we worked together to come up with a prompt that was like, I am trying to improve my academic writing. Here is a sample of my writing. Can you point out places where my writing is unclear? Can you point out places where my writing is redundant? We had like a whole list. And then explain to me how I could improve my writing, but do not rewrite this form. So then it comes back with, this paragraph had X, Y, and Z issues. You're writing in the passive voice. This is how you could reframe to an active voice. And so now there's a learning moment also for that student of, hey, I write in the passive voice. Maybe I've never been told that before. Or my writing is very, like I use a lot of run-on sentences. Maybe I've never been told that before. Maybe I never listened to that feedback before. And so now there's a learning moment back and forth with that student of, okay, these are things that I can work on in the future. These are tips for me. So something like that requires and that's just like one example that giving specificity can be helpful. Something like that where you're intentionally going in, saying you want to learn something versus going in and being like, well, just rewrite that for me. Let's offload that. So that's just like one thought for that.
And did you find it worked well for that student? Like you could actually ask for its feedback, like its feedback you would have given, and cool.
Yeah, I thought it worked quite well for that. I mean, we spent, that wasn't like, just a one-shot prompt that worked great. We did spend a little bit of time tweaking that prompt, but we came up with a good prompt. Yeah, worked quite nicely.
What kind of things did you have to say to it to get it to tweak it, I guess? Like what were some of the biggest errors that happened with first iteration?
So you want to be specific. So just make my writing better.
Not good.
Not good. Because how? Why? So be specific. I'm trying to improve my academic and scientific writing. So actually, and maybe I'll let the other speakers speak, so then I can pull up like off of Claude what exactly the prompt was. But you want to be specific in your prompts. You want to tell your GPT, whoever you're working with, tell them the format you want back. So the format I wanted back was, I wanted specific examples from the writing that were poorly done and specific ways I could fix it. So you're saying, this is how you give that information back to me versus not giving any. And that's the same thing you would do with it, like with a student or with a child or with a colleague, right? You would just say, hey, make this better. How can I make it better? Give me those specific. So the more specific you can be, the better you'll get back. It's like the garbage in, garbage out framework, right? If you give it a bad prompt, it's going to give you back a bad solution.
Oh, great, thank you.
Can I just ask a question real quick? Because I had a student ask me in my class, last week. Said we can't use, AI for the systematic things that we do with the course. Someone said, well, can I use Grammarly for writing? I didn't know. I'm like, I think, is that the same as like spell check on my Word document? And I feel it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
To the point that, is that an appropriate tool to be using or not? And I didn't know the answer. And I feel like a lot of this comes down to just my own education around what I should be telling my students to use. And so I don't know if, I guess I'm asking questions to the panel member over here. Not, but, thank you.
Yeah, Soroush, do you want to reflect
On that,
a little
yeah.
bit on like
Um,
how to integrate that in the classroom and where some boundaries might be?
so I think we'll do it, student side, academic side. Been thinking a lot about the definition of appropriate use. What does that mean? And part of me goes back to academic integrity. I sit on the university's, I'm an appeals officer, and I deal with cases of academic misconduct at the university level. When I read these cases, there's commonality among why they've done what they've done. It's usually because they had extremely poor planning. Bad decisions were made. So one of the exercises on the student side that I do with generative AI is I have the students upload my course outline onto Copilot, the university's whatever. And I have it explain how long it's going to take for a student to complete this assignment and do the readings. Then I have it make a plan to what exactly you should be doing, how much time you should be putting. And then I have the students talk about what they know and they don't know, and the AI will adjust. Planning is one appropriate use on the student side. It's not about cognitive offload. It's about making good decisions. Another way you can use it is I have students write something. It's not if they use AI or not. I'm going to get feedback on them. Then they create the second version. Doesn't matter if they use AI or not. Upload the two versions and outline if or how I have improved and what's missing. And this is really important because when the students write the second version, it's usually the best version they can write, usually. And they come into the class saying, I've written the best version possible, and they see all these gaps. And it's very important here to be very impersonal. Like, it's not coming from me. It's a machine that has a bunch of algorithms that goes through this. So there are many different ways of appropriate use, but planning is one of them. On the academic side, whenever I want to publish a paper, I go to the journal article, the web page that talks about all the requirements, like your title has to be this, and you have to use this. Copy, paste, give it to the AI, give it my text, update. And now I'm at 50. It's not going to get everything right, but I'm at 50 instead of 0. And that's probably a good piece to start. I've already written, so I know what the content is. I have a pretty good idea of what the requirements are. And it usually does a pretty decent job. There are minimal things that I need to change. One other way I use it is I download a couple of papers from that magazine or art journal, and I have the AI look at a couple and write for me the writing style that the previous authors have used. And it's very good at extracting those principles. Then I apply it to my writing. Appropriate use. Also.
Can I just add to that? So a lot of the, let's talk about planning being a big part of that. Now think about, as a grad student that have biostats, one assignment due, you've got an epi assignment due the next day, and you've got a bunch of stuff on your plate.
Throw all your course outlines and things.
Yeah, and at that point, it's just like, maybe I'll just use one of these plots and get something on paper. And I feel like that's probably when a lot of students get in trouble, right? Just, I need something to hand in. And I feel like that's a bad way to start, but the planning seems like it's a key thing in this space.
And I also think like that problem is not new, right? Like just needing to get something on paper and handing it in, that's not a new problem. We just have a new bad solution to that problem, right? Like we know that there were other bad solutions to that problem before. So I think maybe this is just a little bit of a wake up moment of how do we deal with that to start with? And I don't want to, like, that could be a whole nother conversation, but this isn't a new problem.
Wow, lots of hands. Kirsten, and then we'll go to Cody, and then we'll go online.
So I'm just wondering, so you've spoken about appropriate use. Has the university defined what appropriate use is?
No one knows what appropriate use is at this time, honestly.
But I know people like rules and structure, so some places that you can go. The university as a whole has not defined this. However, the Faculty of Graduate Studies has put out guidelines for generative AI and graduate studies. So that's a place that you could go if you need to have some answers. And then graduate sciences education under the Faculty of Graduate Studies is also working on like a GSE interpretation of that for our community. So there are some places you can go, but I think it's important to appreciate this is like a quick moving field. Things will change. But there's some places you could start with anyways.
On the site right now, there are guidelines, but it is really left up to the supervisor to kind of have that conversation with students to decide what is considered appropriate, what's the boundaries. So I think it's really to us to be familiar with what we're comfortable with, what we're able to support our students with as well, but it's really left up to us individuals.
And part of what that GSE interpretation that will come out sometime this semester will be a conversation guide to help you have those conversations, both with yourself and then with your students.
That's that confidence part that's a lot of us need.
I'm just gonna add, I don't like the fact that the Faculty of Graduate Study guidelines, but I think it's very important that the supervisor has agency. I currently have two students. One is working on critical theory in education. For that student, I have banned generative AI. Don't touch it. The reason why I've done that is because all the models are so biased, have a North American perspective, that if you touch it, it's going to contaminate your data. Another student is focused on post-humanism. You should absolutely, in fact, I require it. Because AI is just a node in the post-human world, and it is going to enhance the research. So it really goes back to having an understanding of these systems are biased, they're not perfect, when and in which approaches they're going to be helpful, and in which approaches they're going to be harmful. And have that conversation with the students saying, here's why. And usually 99% of the time, they say, okay. And they go on doing their research with that in mind.
Inara, I just wanted to ask you if you had any reflections from your perspective, like what would be useful for a student? How does that conversation sound?
I think it's a great idea for instructors to maybe provide specific examples of what is okay and not okay in the classroom. I know I had a course with Jessalyn where we had a good conversation about this, using ChatGPT to do your top hat question, not appropriate. Asking it to explain a concept to you in more casual language or provide some variants of a problem that you're working on in class to help you understand how the bits fit together a better use. And I guess definitely just having a few rules of thumb, like would this be misconduct or unethical if I asked a friend to do what I'm asking a Gen AI to do? Could it be unethical if I use a series of Google searches? whether I use ChatGPT or Google Scholar to arrive at an article I'm going to illegitimately paraphrase from, that's still misconduct. That's not right. Doesn't matter how you got there, but if you're looking at things like having it generate some synonyms for you, you know, in a sense or in a way that doesn't take away your own critical thinking, it wouldn't be unethical if you asked a friend or Google, and then it's something that you can parse the mistakes that it's going to make, because it will make mistakes. So if you aren't at the level where you can parse it, don't touch it.
All right, so I'm done here.
I think my question was sort of answered earlier, just talk about where we're gonna find good sources to talk about AI, like where should we be looking besides like the GSC website? I know there's a couple podcasts, there's some other resources, but I don't know which ones should be vetted, which ones should we look at, which one should we just disregard? Is that sort of a back to the supervisor sort of conversation, or is there advice you have on that?
We'll talk about everything. Yeah, you should talk.
I think a huge part of AI literacy is having an understanding of what agency means. And if you have a clear understanding of what human agency is, before you talk about prompt engineering, before talking about tools, before talking about appropriate use, or before even talking about AI in general, what does human agency mean? And connect that to responsibility, and then connect that to accountability. I would start there. I won't actually go near AI at all. I think that we're going to see more human AI collaborations in the future. They're going to be ubiquitous, they're going to be everywhere. But having a deep understanding of agency was not required until now. We didn't teach it in our schools. We have no programming for it. We didn't really think it was a big deal. It's a big deal. And so at a supervisor capacity, as a teacher capacity, I would recommend having a conversation, really deep conversation on what is agency, what is responsibility, what is accountability. I think everything else kind of falls in place after that.
I think we're gonna go online and then we'll come this way and then back.
Okay. Bolu had a question expanding on what Kristen asked, saying what the future of teaching, especially grading and assessments, might look like in the future. Is that even needed anymore since Gen AI in classrooms goes mainstream in the near future?
I'm gonna wait until other people respond to that.
The idea of upgrading some.
I'll respond to that in a similar way as I did to the kind of academic misconduct question of we've always had to assess students, and have we always assessed students in really good ways? Maybe, but also maybe not. So I think that this is a question beyond Gen AI actually, is like, what does a good assessment look like? And then you can layer an AI lens on that. But I think that's actually where I would start, is what does a good assessment look like? What does an authentic assessment look like? What types of assessments are really getting at what we're trying to teach students? And that looks very different in whatever faculty you're in, whatever classroom you're in. So that's where I would start with that piece. But do I think our relationship to assessment will change in the future? Probably. Will our relationship to grading change in the future? Probably. There's already some interesting grading tools out there that are being heavily used in some places. Like I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things to come, but I would actually bring it back to what is a good assessment to start with. And just like the academic misconduct question, like, is this the light bulb moment that's kind of making us rethink that? Maybe, but maybe that's a good thing. And also I'll just plug that Soroush is going to come to our AI symposium on October 17th and give a talk called Rethinking Assessment and Civilized Student Experiences in the Era of Gen AI. So
Do you want to give us a teaser, Soroush?
Well, I was just gonna add, like, maybe just to plug Jessalyn's podcast as well. You had Heather on last time as well. You talked about just the idea of a thesis, and should we still have the traditional thesis and be evaluated on that? And I feel like that's why we still have the oral part of that exam, right? Like you could write something you didn't want to write awesome pieces. Maybe not, maybe good, but you put that out there and then you have to defend that work. And that requires that critical thought, the ability to stand up and defend that work. And that part is still necessary. And it just comes back to different ways of evaluating students. I think that there still has to be that part of the question. There's some dialogue between.
Okay, so I'll just give it a quick teaser. We assess products and we reward perfection. Our rubrics are designed to reward perfection. And so we have a tool that will produce a perfect, very close to perfect outcome. And we're upset when students present that to us. I think that we're going to shift fundamentally from assessing the product to assessing the process. Show me your intellectual labor, show me the virtues, show me reflection, show me how you connected the concepts together. Show me how you failed, show me how you got up, show me how you got better. I think we're not far away from that.
I saw a hand here and then we're going to the back. Yeah.
Yeah, I have somewhat provocative question because Soroush, you mentioned that those AI agents cannot reason, and there is evidence that they can. And Jeffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner, has actually proved it that they can reason. And a related point to how those tools could be used for improving reasonings and other analytical processes. I have an example. One of the instructors at the Faculty of Social Work uses the AI, like personalized version, for the whole course. And from my experience, I was a student in the class. Actually, the level of organization, preparation, feedback, and everything is way above an average instructor throughout the faculty.
Even a good instructor.
Exactly. But she has used it in a very sophisticated way. So she bought this paid version for $200 per month, and then created a database and really read all the readings and created the everything, kind of synthesized all by means of feeding it into the system and then reflecting on it and then providing kind of an outline on the basis of her own experience and some synthesis from those AI outputs. And my question is, like, why don't other faculty members and instructors use the same way in a very organized manner and plan it to make graduate students reason better by using AI and really improving not the basic of knowledge, you need this course done, here's your grade, here's diploma, but really, as you pointed out, contributing to virtues, values, and ways of organizing things, in terms of how to better reason with the help of those tools.
Stay tuned, they're coming. I can promise you that. Jeffrey Hinton is a purist. So yes, you're right. It's at some level they can reason. The issue is data does not equal truth. And if you have bad data, you have bad reasoning. So just by the fact that they can reason doesn't mean that given the data, they can do it well. There might be instances where the data is quite pure, you can, but they're extremely limited. But I hear what you're saying. There are many, many ways we can use them. We're looking right now at the VOC, trying to figure out the low-hanging fruit and integrating that for faculty. I think that 2028-ish, they will be widely available. And I think that by that time, we'll have the capability of saying, make me this tool. ChatGPT. And it will build you that tool, and you can use that tool. It won't be a chatbot anymore.
Janine.
Sure, yeah, just kind of coming back to some of the examples like this that we're talking about. Just really simple things that you can use ChatGPT in terms of like making a section of your paper more concise, for example, or helping you write some of those things. So you can go from entering your class paper to potentially your thesis to your future manuscript that you're working on. Is there any risk of uploading that content onto these tools in terms of future publication, copyright issues, and it being out in the world now through these AI systems? Because that's something that I'm sort of informed about that we shouldn't be doing, but I'm not sure, because I'm hearing that that is kind of being done. So if you can answer that question, like, is it okay for us to allow not only our students, but ourselves as we're writing our own papers and we're putting it out there and getting that feedback and in potentially being helpful for us before publication? So if you can answer that, and I have a follow-up to that, that is actually related to that.
Question?
Sure. So many answers to that question, but I think it's gonna boil down to your own personal like risk benefit ratio. But there are things you can do to safeguard yourself. So you can, depending on what platform you're using, there are always options to like, don't send my data, or don't use my data for training. So you can go that route. You can also use, so we do have, within the university, we've got Copilot Chat, is within our university realm. So there's ways around that. But what I think is important to understand, without getting like too technical, is that when you put your work into one of these things and you're allowing it to use your work to train future models, it's looking at like the relationships between words and how words flow together in a sentence, and all your work is vectorized before it. Like, so the probability that somebody's gonna pull out your exact work again, like extremely low. So, but I think everybody will make their own risk benefit tolerance there.
1 to 72 million. That's the probability.
Wow.
Of repeating. So.
Yeah. So very low, but then like just another like little tiny tidbits in there are, you know, if you're doing this for your course, like you should make sure your course instructor allows this. If you're doing this for your thesis, you should be having this conversation with your supervisor. If you're doing this with a manuscript, you should be looking at what the journal guidelines are, because even if you think this is appropriate use, you might be working with somebody who thinks it's not. So.
No, that's great, and that's really good, helpful guidance for me on some of that. And then this is kind of a sub question to that is, an email that I got from colleagues, who were informed that there is a class action lawsuit against Meta Canada for accessing copyright material that we are producing, for example, as academics, and even my own publications for, teaching these natural, like training large language models, and using it without our, I guess, permission, right? And for commercial use. So as academics, if we're informed of this, if we're asked, for example, to join these things, which I wasn't, but how do we tackle that? How would I even address this? Is this really something I should be concerned about? Is it something that we should be rallying against, or just sort of sitting back being like, well, our stuff's published, it's out there, it's actually with the journal and the publishers now, not with me as an individual, as the author of that paper. Can I do anything? Can I participate in any of that? So there's just an interesting email that I got being like, hey, there's this lawsuit going on. What do you think? Should we do something? And this was colleagues at AHS, were also part of my publication pool and team members. So how would you advise people like that if something does come up, and should we be concerned about our materials being used for commercial use of these models?
Oh, that's a layered one. Send that to you.
So Elsevier has done the same. There was a lawsuit that didn't go anywhere. You don't own the data, Elsevier does. Even if you do own the data, there's been several lawsuits against these generative AI companies. I don't know of anyone that has actually gone through. And it doesn't go through because traditional copyright laws was written before generative AI. And since they're not actually reading the material, they're looking for statistical patterns among words. You're not actually reading anything. It's just zeros and ones and patterns. So I think the word training is very misleading in this context. There's no training in the sense of human training. It's an algorithmic training of looking for statistical patterns. And generative AI tools, they just predict. They're just an algorithm that just predicts. So it depends on personal preference. If you feel strongly that people shouldn't even look at my paper for that purpose, then yeah, why not? But if you feel that these tools are contributing more than me going out saying, don't look at my paper, then probably.
Thank you. Just, we have 3 minutes left, and I just wanted to give each of you the opportunity to reflect on a key message that you would like us as your audience to take away from our chat today.
Let's go that way.
Oh, this way, okay. Inara, we'll start with you.
Okay.
I think I'll come back to you if we need more.
No, I think I'm good to go. I guess if I could leave with one brief reflection, which like to other students that may be listening in, the greatest value of your university education, especially your graduate education, is the ability to critically think. Don't let any sort of tool take that away.
I sat here on this panel hoping to like provide some advice, but I feel like I learned more than I did. So I think that if anything, I found that a lot of it's around being creative, around how you're using these tools. And I think there's a lot of value in how that can be used in the academic world. And so I know that I've got a lot to learn, and I'm hoping that everyone learned something today in that space. So hopefully next time it'll be closer to the front of my my screen on my iPhone. We'll get it. Worry about it.
I was speaking at a high school, and one of the high school students at the end of the talk asked, what is my job interview going to look like in 5 years, given generative AI? I thought that was a great question. And I struggled a bit. But I managed to put this together, and I think that's my brain reflection. People are going to look for companies or anyone who's going to hire you. They're going to look for your ability to work with the machine, to create an artifact that is better than if you did it alone or if the machine did it alone. That your collaboration together will produce an artifact that supersedes everything else. And if you think of that, if you have that in mind as you're working with these generative AI tools, that the final product is going to be better than what the machine could do alone or what I could do alone, then I think you'll go far.
Because I can say nothing more poignant than that. I'm gonna leave you with a challenge. So I think that if you think about some of your like best academic ideas, your best teaching ideas, they probably came from talking to a colleague and collaborating with a colleague. So my challenge to you is that I would like you to go out and try something new with generative AI. Try something new, try something simple, try something that maybe you're very familiar with in your own work, and that maybe helps you do the fact checking, but try something new. And then most importantly, you need to talk to a colleague about it and ask questions and have that conversation and learn how they're using or what pitfalls they've come across so that we can all have an open conversation and learn together. I think one of the worst things we could do at a time like or embarrassed ashamed of our use and being like, well, I'm just gonna like do this in ChatGPT on the side, but I won't tell anybody about it. Like have those conversations, ask those questions, try something new so that we can make like an open, curious learning environment together. So that would be my challenge to you this week, is try something new and then talk to your colleagues about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciated the wisdom and the openness with which you shared, and this is what we find that you gave us today. So thank you very much. If you haven't had food, please grab some on your way out, and we'll look where we're going to have a student-led panel hosted by Cheese. So we'll see you all that then. Have a great rest of your day.